And we started to realize, okay, this 8th time of Irwindale closing is probably really going to be the real one. We had to start thinking about an alternative.
Irwindale Speedway is set to close in December.
After 7 rounds, a new battleground. The Shoreline Showdown takes over the streets of Long Beach. A brand new track. Round 8, the final battle. This is the Shoreline Showdown.
We wanted to avoid it being a parking lot event. The only way to do that is then to incorporate some of the public city streets into the layout. And so, this idea about shutting down Shoreline became an idea, and then it was like, well, how do we build off of that? The first kind of track course derivation that was first done in the normal ways, and then using those dimensions, like literally down to the millimeter, built into a sim course configuration.
Are you guys considering moving towards more database?
Yeah.
Okay, how is that gonna work?
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Hey. Ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era.
Welcome back to the Circle of Drift podcast. Again, thanks to all of you that stop in every single week for a brand new episode. You guys are the absolute best. And continue to leave your feedback and stuff in the comments so I can continue to make the show better and better each and every week. But today we are actually going to be hearing from none other than Ryan Sage, one of the co-founders of Formula Drift, where we'll dive into Irwindale disappearing and Shoreline Showdown taking over its place as the finale. And we go into some other deeper stuff that just involves Formula Drift in general. But look, I know a lot of you guys are here because you're looking to either get into drifting or maybe just build your skill level from here. And obviously one of the best ways to do that nowadays is through sim drifting. And lucky for you guys, this show is presented by SimHQ, so you can always save 5% off on your next upgrade. Don't miss out. Don't pay full price if you don't have to. And brush up on that seat time, especially with off season being here already. But that's enough from me. And other than that, let's go ahead and just get into the podcast. We are back. We are actually at FD Long Beach. Quite a far ways from me, but what better way to start it off than Ryan Sage? How are you today, man?
I'm doing okay. It's been a very, very long 18 months, and even longer 6 months, and the last 3 months have been, as close to physical torture as you could get, I guess. After 23 years of doing this, I kind of know where my limits are. We kind of flew past them on this one. So
How so?
It's just, we've done events, almost on the same grounds before, obviously, with the Long Beach Grand Prix. The backbone of that operation is you take for granted how significant it is. And, they are here helping us in a production capacity, but really, this is our event, we're responsible for it. So there's a lot of things that just come with, shutting down the city for a few hours, and street closures, and all of the different needs that are required. And the city has been great to work with. This is one of the most pro-event administrations I think that we've ever seen. The mayor's an incredible advocate and has done a great job, being that we're a Long Beach-based business, in getting people to come into downtown Long Beach. But nonetheless, just from an infrastructure standpoint and what's required, it's really, really hard.
Dude, that's incredible. I couldn't imagine the planning. And you said 18 months it's been just for this event?
18 months was when we were stuck with Irwindale, and we started to realize, okay, this 8th time of Irwindale closing is probably really going to be the real one. And then it started to get closer and closer to truth. We had to start thinking about an alternative, and what do we have, in our Rolodex, what's available out there that could serve as a possible alternative. There just wasn't a lot, and everything we were coming up with kind of felt short on expectations. And then this, through a long story of getting this out there to people that are also kind of like in the racing industry, but also understand what we do. This kind of popped up, and that was probably about 18 months ago. And then we kind of slowly went from, is it possible to, is it probable? And then from probable to, right after Irwindale, like they announced that next week that it was closing and going to be destroyed within 30 days. We like had to accelerate, and knowing that there was no going back because there was going to be nothing to, we knew that there was going to be nothing to go to in Irwindale. I think people held out hope, but we just knew that this time was the real time because of all the like internal discussions and documents that the city of Irwindale had exposed about, the new owner of the property and what was going to be happening. It was a foregone conclusion at that point. But we went into that event, and we really weren't allowed to say anything. I mentioned something in the drivers' meeting to the extent of like, hey, let's have a good time out there. We should enjoy this while we have it. Wink, wink, kind of like, hey, this is going to be the last one. So I'm sure there was a few seats missing and probably some, memorabilia from the track before they destroyed it. But that's kind of the point anyways, to get stuff, as a memory.
Yeah, it was really hard to see that track go. As far as what other tracks that were an option, what even was there? Because I was trying to think of some myself, and
it's really, it's a custom build somewhere, wherever that might be. Or you had places like California Speedway where we've done events there before. It doesn't really have the vibe and the feeling that Irwindale had. Most of the events that we go to, whether they're like short course, oval modified tracks, or whether they're road courses, they all have that kind of same general presence to them where no matter where you sit, you can see the entire thing. It's not like a traditional race in the sense that, hey, I'm going to go post up on turn 7 and listen to the radio and see the cars fly by me. The whole idea of drifting, I think, is so that every fan can see all the action and be a judge along the way, so to speak. And there's just not a lot. I think the conditions for us were, it had to be somewhere in the Southern California region or in California. It had to be able to be built into a level of confidence for us that was going to feel like it could replace the House of Drift, and that we would be able to do something long term at it. So when you take those three together, I think we were down to maybe Vegas, downtown LA, and Vegas would have been, a cool market, but I don't know that it would have matched an Irwindale vibe. And downtown LA was just that's us trying to build a relationship with a city that we don't have a relationship with in the same extent that we do here. Plus, it would be unbelievably expensive to try to figure out how to do it if we even had a concept at all. And so, this idea about shutting down Shoreline, hence Shoreline Showdown, became an idea that started floating around. And then it was well, how do we build off of that? And so that's kind of how it started.
So how did the idea of the layout come to question? Who made the decision on what was going to be drawn out?
Well, we wanted to avoid it being a parking lot event. So, the only way to do that is then to incorporate some of the public city streets, into the layout. For Long Beach 1, this entire venue is almost closed off in the same sense that the Grand Prix is, but maybe say about, 30 to 40% less, because you have, this is Shoreline over here, going all the way down to Pine is closed, and then from Linden all the way down to Pine, and then coming down, connecting here on this road right behind us is also closed. So it's kind of closed off into a kind of a square with a rounded edge for Shoreline. That's with the help of the Grand Prix, right? And knowing that we're the lead into round 1. For this one, you have Shoreline that's closed down, but it's closed down at a slightly different location, just right after Pine. But that's basically it. Nobody can come down from Ocean onto Shoreline. They'd have to do a U-turn or they go into the park over there. So the shutdown is much more like of a containment issue, right? And like being able to manage that. It's also one of the only areas that we could actually do something that's never been done before, which is to drive backwards on like one of the most like picturesque and like notable, highways / streets in Southern California, which is Shoreline. So Shoreline is where they do the front straight for IndyCar, goes right by the harbor. It's a really cool, iconic thing, and that's what we finish on Shoreline at Long Beach 1. So now we start backwards in reverse where the hot pits are, and we go down Shoreline in the opposite direction, go on to turn 10, into turn 9, and then we go into a brand new section that's never been driven on before, and then we exit back out going on the opposite side of Shoreline. So, yeah.
So how does the surface change? How are you seeing that affect some of the drivers?
I think if it was raining, we'd be super nervous right now. It's actually, I think it's pretty good. We're not necessarily looking for everything to be like this kind of asphalt or brand new tarmac. I mean, the tarmac where a large portion of the ladder turns kind of takes place has only been drifted once before, and that was when we had a Ford kind of promotional demonstration called Ford Unleashed at 2 rounds in previous years. Other than that, it's basically brand new blacktop. And so that combined with the kind of a little bit of a different surface going out onto the main highway is where you get your variation. Now that's no different than Long Beach 1. The only difference is that this blacktop is blacktop that has really never had rubber put down on it in this way before. So like if it was raining, we would all be kind of like shitting hard. This is a shit your pants track. Am I allowed to say that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, we've had rain here before, and it is the most torturous track for rain, just because of how slick it gets, and how inconsistent it is from track surface to track surface when it gets wet. In dry, it actually works really well.
Well, that's good. Because usually, especially like a road surface, I don't know how the concrete or pavement is on the actual highway, but it's usually 10 times grippier than any track surface or parking lot surface I've been in.
Yeah, well, what you see is there will obviously be an accumulation of rubber over time, but really it's the initiation that's on that surface. Once they catch, they're already on the inside of the old turn 10, which all of these guys have driven before. So it's not too dissimilar for them, other than the fact that it's going in the completely opposite direction. It's something that no human being has actually ever done, because it would be illegal in a real car. And even in the race car track, they're driving in the proper direction on Shoreline. So that's kind of the uniqueness factor of it. That's where Shoreline came about. What's also cool, kind of like an inside thing for us, is like we spend most of our time looking at the Long Beach skyline in the first round. In this one, we're looking at the harbor. So you've got a totally different perspective, which, that doesn't have anything really to do with the track. It's just the way that the show will be shot, how things will be seen. One is this really great, cool city backdrop. The other one is the marina and the beach.
It probably splits it up for make it feel a little different at home too.
Yeah,
Not like the same event.
We're based here, so this, this is as close to, I think, appropriate as a replacement for Irwindale as we could get. This is where Formula Drift was more or less started. And this is where we, started the relationship with the city and with the Grand Prix in 2007. And I think 2008, we did the World Championship on the docks, which we looked at again. But, in 2008, this was like right before the crash. Right before the crash, there was no cars out there, no storage out there, big open lot. You go out there now, it's wall-to-wall cars, storage, for automotive manufacturers and things like that. That was a standalone venue where where we're standing or sitting right now, this was the parking pickup to take people over in trams to that event. And that was one of the hardest things that we had to do for that event. But that event, from a build from scratch, type of, kind of starting point, was way easier than doing this one. This is the hardest thing that we've ever done.
I would not expect that.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. The reason why is because that venue was essentially available to us 30 days out or more, 24/7. And it was very easy to secure because you couldn't basically get off the freeway as a regular automotive vehicle or anything like that without a permit. And because there's no parking over there, nobody could drive over there. So we basically just were there for 3-4 weeks setting up. This one, we're working around everything that's going on. And it's not the Long Beach Grand Prix that's been here for 50 years where everybody knows on this weekend, hey, it's going to get a little bit crazy. Like all of a sudden, we're just taking over an event weekend in downtown Long Beach with city street closures while they've got conventions going on, while there's all kinds of stuff coming in town, normal operating business. It's just been so much more difficult.
As far as what you've noticed going into the first day, official day, is there already some changes that you can tell that will need to be made for last year if we come back here?
You mean in terms of the general event?
Yeah, just a general event. I mean, even the layout too.
Oh, yeah. I think we knew that coming into this that it's highly unlikely that you're going to get it quote unquote right the first time. I think we're around the edges of it being appropriate for the allocation of space that we have, and the layout and the amount of K-rail that we needed and blocks and blah, 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 blah. But I think there's certainly some fine tuning. We tried to give ourselves as much headroom as we could to do some fine tuning on the course side. We basically, what's interesting about this track layout is I don't know if anybody else has done this, so I'll just say it's the first, but maybe I'm wrong. The first kind of track course derivation that was first done in the normal ways, and then using those dimensions, literally down to the millimeter, was built into a sim course configuration, tested for hundreds and hundreds of laps with various drivers, including pro drivers. On the basis of that, we made additional tweaks after we got the safety approvals, and then we gave ourselves a margin to be able to correct that so that we didn't paint and end up with permanent paint where we didn't want it. That's why we didn't paint the connecting lines. We painted the zones that could be expanded or shortened, and we left all of the border of the track unpainted so that once we kind of saw where these guys were driving after the first practice, we could start laying down the track perimeter. Because we don't know, everybody talks about how relevant sim is to the real world, and it certainly is better than what's up here, what's on paper. How much it carries over into the real world in a one-to-one, we're finding that out right now. So this is a model of testing the applicability of sim and various people that drive sim all the time to give us feedback.
It's been pretty interesting from my point of view too, because I obviously working with Sim HQ too, they had a big part to do with that track. And I've been driving it myself. And as soon as I drove down here yesterday to come pick up credentials, I could see out into the track and see the width of it and so on and so forth. Dude, it looked so different. It looked so much smaller, so much more narrow. And I was wondering how it actually feels kind of being out there, maybe in a car, if it feels a little bit the same as a sim. I don't know.
I think the translation, the psychology of being in a sim to real world, the psychological translation, I don't think that it carries over one-to-one in the width and all that kind of stuff. I think the danger factor that you're gonna crash into a K-rail or a light pole kind of goes away because you're in a video game, so to speak. But the dimensions themselves are literally exactly to scale.
No way.
Yeah. So
so interesting.
We in our first rendition, we had to get it approved for safety, and there were some tweaks we had to make there to be in compliance with all the insurance requirements and everything else. And one of the things that we knew was going to be hard is we want to try to design this to minimize the things that cost a lot that nobody really notices, which is like those light poles that are out there. So every single light pole that you have to remove is a whole ordeal. So after the first rendition, we removed additional light poles to open up the space. But even so, on that last corner exit, there's a square of rail off to driver's right. And that is basically blocking a pole where that last little section kind of tightens down to its most narrow point. I don't think that translates in the same way that it does in the sim.
Dude, I've been driving it for like the past 2 weeks. Geronimo sent it to me a couple weeks beforehand too, so I was messing with it myself.
Real interesting dude.
Yeah. But back to like the entry part being on the main highway, are they scrubbing? It's probably seeing a lot of drivers coming up too short, right? I would assume.
You mean in real life?
Yeah, in real life, because you're scrubbing a lot of speed coming at that wall, and being on the main road pavement, I'm sure it's a little bit grippy. Or were you seeing people struggle with that first turn?
I think Connor Shanahan had probably the most exemplary run that I saw when I was up there watching, and trying to capture a little bit more of like an ideal line, to then take that and translate that into the updated map when we were going to finish the final course and paint the lines as everybody got a chance to kind of drive it and get used to it. But I think the kind of the challenge that we are running into is we needed to be able to give ourselves that margin to be able to do that, and the time to be able to do that, particularly with the border of the course. And all of our run-ups, to speak to your point, are basically just done on a math problem. So we so we used to, in the old days, it was always like, how far back could we get? How far into triple digits could we go? Like, you probably remember Salt Lake year one. What ends up happening is like people will go up to that speed and then pull off to slow speed down, because either A, they're going to miss the corner. It also opens up an opportunity for them not to play games, but that's what people will naturally think. And maybe there are some that do that, where you can modulate the speed and there's not a lot of consistency for the chase, right? The way that Kevin has designed our run-ups for each of the individual courses is so that you are mostly at full throttle up to the point of initiation. Because then for the chase driver, it becomes way more predictable. Like, drivers are always looking for an edge. What we're looking for is what's the best possible situation that accounts for all the variables, that makes good tandem, and that is exciting to watch. And so you don't need a triple digit run up. In fact, you probably don't want one, because many people will utilize that in a way in which you don't necessarily have to go triple digits to make those corners. And I think that's what we would hope to accomplish here, is just they're essentially full throttle out of the gate into initiation, so that everything is predictable and it becomes more focused on the driving than about strategy.
So is that what was the first wheel that Kansei ever came out with?
Tandem?
So close.
Roku.
No.
The Roku?
No.
If I had to guess, I would say Roku.
I'm gonna guess Roku, maybe?
It is literally the same thing you said. No, it's the KMP. What was the original name for the KMP? I don't think anybody's gonna guess this all day.
I have no clue. I'm not even a guess in my head, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Nope. Not at all?
No, I sure don't.
That I don't remember. Wasn't? No.
I don't know if it was said anywhere else other than my podcast. Still had KNP in it.
I'm sorry, Chris.
Oh, it was flatlined.
Wow, I don't know that one. I don't know that one. Yeah, I'm stumped on
Still
that.
got KNP in it. It's actually called the Noop. The Kansei Noop. It was never, well, it wasn't Kansei at the time. It was Simpec still.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the Noop. KNOOP. Hell yeah, and he's working the booth too. Why you guys have put a lot more emphasis on the lead line this year? It seems like the lead line is judged way harder versus the chase this year.
I think it's like, how like in politics, there will be something that's interesting and noteworthy, and you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I get that. But then it goes way too far. And then what happens is instead of a corrective that makes it back to the, hey, this kind of makes sense, it goes way too far in the other direction. It could be any topic, right? And yeah, like, you know, all the ones that are hot button. It's a lot like that in this too. People will complain about, you know, the lead did this, the lead did that, blah, 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 blah. And then, you know, we will make an adjustment to accommodate for that. Not in the rule book sense, but in the way that each course is looked at individually for what the lead and the chase driver responsibilities are. But naturally, nothing can happen that is like relatively positive for the two runs themselves if the lead is not performing duties at a pretty high percentage. So I think in that sense, that's how I would view the way that they're putting emphasis on the lead. However, I think it does get spoken about more than it actually is, right? If the lead has a really, really good lead, but the chase has a really, really good chase, I wouldn't say that the lead would have an advantage if those two responsibilities were met in the same way. On the flip side, if the lead makes a mistake that is kind of unpredictable in the area and the chase driver's within proximity, and we know that, you know, an athlete generally can react in about a quarter of a second, right? That's a high level athlete. So if you're a baseball player, that's when you start your swing, right? The disanalogy to that is that they can physically react. A high level athlete can physically react in that time frame. It's the car that needs to react to their reaction, right? So you have that secondary time allocation. So if he's within proximity, you either have to buy into the idea that you have to assign a whatever half of a second of reaction, total reaction time for the chase, not to go closer than that if he makes a mistake, or if he is closer than that, then, you know, there's some kind of penalty paid. Or you have to just say, look, physics is physics. You're going to have people that react at that time, some that don't. But the whole idea is for them to get as close as they possibly can, and knowing that if a lead driver makes a mistake that could have been adjusted to, that it's taking into account those factors. So, I mean, that's a very, very nuanced look at it. I mean, that's how I personally see it. Like, I don't think it makes any sense to say, get as close as possible, but don't get so close that you don't have enough time to react. I think you should get as close as you need to, but not use that as a strategy so that if the driver makes a 2% error, right, that's barely noticeable, that all of a sudden all of the fault goes to the lead, right? If you are within that threshold of reaction time plus car time, you're just asking for you to hit that driver if he makes even the modest mistake, line or otherwise. So that's where I think, like, you can't go past the physical abilities and the reaction of the car and use that as an advantage if you're the chase, just because there's this idea that the lead has a greater importance or whatever. I don't think that they should. I think that it should be equal importance, but you have to unpack what it means for there to be, you know, an emphasis on one versus the other.
Yeah, it almost seems like there's some circumstances where the chase almost completely outweighed the lead or vice versa, but it still continues just being talked about the lead.
Yeah, no, so, I mean, I think my personal opinion on where that kind of came from is partly what you said, and the other part is when we kind of changed, when we started focusing more on what would create the best possible show. One of the things that went to the wayside was the responsibility of the chase driver having to follow the lead driver no matter where he goes. So in previous iterations, the chase driver was supposed to drive the line, right? That was dictated. And a lot of people may not know that, but that had been in it like an institutional rule for a very, very long time. Over the years, it got a little bit more like, well, if the lead driver is on some crazy out of control line, why should we, suffer through that battle from an entertainment perspective because the chase driver is making the decision to go on the right line, right? What we should give him credit for is that he's able to make that adjustment and follow the lead driver no matter where he goes, even if the lead driver is making mistakes. So once you kind of factor that into the history of it, I think that's kind of how that started.
On that note, for the chase driver's perspective, what was the deciding factor to make it okay for the chase driver to be able to tap the lead driver in certain zones and stuff? Because that didn't used to be a thing, right? Used to get almost docked for touching the lead drive, right?
You do get docked for it. Everything is on a judgment severity. So the way that I think what you're referring to there is we now no longer have to assign fault for contact without an incomplete. I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah. So really that has nothing to do with the judging side. It has more to do with the expediency of the show. Because what was happening is if I hit you, for example, and you spin out, an incomplete happened, right? It's a no-brainer.
Oh, it was the most irritating thing. I'm not going to name who, but it irritated me so much.
At that point, the fault really does play a role because you have an incomplete. Somebody's going to have to get a penalty. If I'm rubbing you and you're a straightforward, fourth right driver, and you're in it, you're taking it, it's not affecting you at all. Yes, the chase should not be doing that, so to speak. The effect to the lead is marginal or nothing based on his behavior of the car. However, if it's between run 1 and run 2, we want to make sure that, if you have a toe that's out or something broke off of your car that's important, we don't want to sit there and spend 15 minutes looking through replays to find out who's at fault. Let's just give them both complimentary 5s because that will be faster than being it doesn't play a role in the judging at all because they're already judging it anyways. It's just about pragmatically getting from point A to point B without having to add an extra process of fault. And the fault part always in people's heads means bad.
Right? Yeah.
Because it is bad in the incomplete sense, right? It's not wonderful in the non-incomplete sense. It may be completely trivial because the bumps or the taps had zero effect on the lead driver. Yes, there's a modest amount of lack of car control on the chase. That will be taken into consideration, but we don't need to sit there for, 5, 10, 15 minutes looking at replays being like, oh, who was really at fault on this,
Dude, that's so smart. That's such a good way to make it efficient. I would have never thought of that.
People are still getting confused on that. And look, it's hard to have a rule book without a lot of provisions because so many things can happen. I've always wanted to just go more simple, but if you should come to our drivers meeting tomorrow just so you can kind of get
I would love to.
Yeah, you should come because there's 2 camps in the series that I see. And we've given them names. One is kind of like the purists, the originalists, and one are kind of like the new school people that are thinking about this. They're probably 10 to 15 years younger than some of the guys that started. The guys that are in the purist kind of category are the ones where the details don't really matter as much. It's more about the feeling and the precision in the rule set and the judging part of it doesn't need to be derived and put on paper. The precision people are more like, I need to know the details of every single little thing because this particular thing could happen and I need to know how that's going to get treated. So you have kind of divergent camps, the freedom camp and I need every single rule down to the most detailed one. Otherwise, I'm going to be missing something. I'm not saying either one is right or wrong. that is very much a split within the series. Has been for a long time too.
Are you guys considering moving towards more data-based?
Yeah.
You know, okay. How is that gonna work?
I don't think in the world of perfect data that is an unknown, or like that there's a pathway to it. I mean, I don't think that I don't think that you should have a data system that is like making the calls for you. Okay. I think it comes in a support role. I mean, when I came onto the position that I am now, I probably took more risks than I would have when, Jim, my partner, and I were together, because it was more nerve-wracking, like which one of us is going to get fired if we make a big enough mistake. And that kind of keeps you like being more pragmatic. When he left and it was just me, I did feel like I had more flexibility to take some risks, and they were either going to pay off or they were going to crash and burn. And some of the stuff that we've done in the development of data acquisition has been a crash and burn, but it's been offset by other risks that we've taken that have done well, whether it's financially or from a PR perspective or otherwise. So our first attempt at it, I think, the idea was right. We spent more money than I even want to think about putting it all together, but we never really had a actual data set live that we could go off of and utilize within judging. We had been adopting the data coming off of the decel light. We've been putting numerical values to the actual physical principles that have been coming off the car. But what we really needed to do was to take that and put it into the broadcast and as a tool for the judges, because what I refuse to do is say, hey, these guys just looked at this data, trust them.
I agree with that so much. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, why you've held off for so long, because I watch, Drift Masters, and they have the Wally system, and it's cool, but like you hardly ever get any of the proof from that Wally system on the live stream or anything. I'm sure you maybe find it on their website or something. I don't know.
I think they are the leaders in this space. Every organization that uses Wally can use it in different ways. It's kind of set up to operate like that. So, Drift Masters may not be integrating it as much into the broadcast because, they have a broadcast partner that has a certain kind of standard. They want it done a certain kind of way. And, maybe they have to get it to a certain point before they can do that. Whereas, whether it's clutch kickers or anybody else that may not have those constraints, might be fine integrating it into the broadcast in a way that is built by them as opposed to built by you, so that the fans can see what's going on. But there are data feeds. They've got I think that group, they are primarily drifters first, tech people second. So they understand like what this is all about, and I think that's given them a pretty good like edge. When they started off, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, it was very much like in the development. Now I think it's a legitimate company that's doing a lot of really good work, and they understand all of the concerns that event promoters and series have because they live in this world. It's not like going to the outside to a data company that's doing, either GPS located or some other kind of technology, wheel speed, sensors, whatever, blah, 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 and saying, hey, I have this sport, let me explain it to you. Like they're already in it.
So as far as their production company and stuff, is there no one around here that is relatively similar to that? Because people do, I would say, not complain, but they compare a lot the live streams versus, FD versus Drift Masters, and how like the quality of production is so much different and better. Like, is it, or is it just a lot of the props and like displays that people are seeing?
I think their show is, produced by arguably the most progressive and top line and professional media company in the world. right? Like we're never going to be able to compete with Red Bull. Like that is like, from a production quality, like you will be hard to beat anything they do ever. Now, if you put them up side by side and said, you know, what's the difference? They're gonna have a super slow-mo cam that's really cool. They use a singular drone FPV. We use two. They have a 1080 feed. We have a 1080 feed. There's a lot of overlap, but like what they probably spend in a singular round is what we spend in the entire year. And that's just because like we are running a for-profit business where we need to make sure we make payroll, and everybody's responsible to somebody. So our production line for broadcast is the biggest line that we have, but it's not ever going to be anywhere near like what they're capable of doing.
Now, why hasn't Red Bull stepped in here? Obviously, I know we are partners with Rockstar and stuff like that, but people do mention that a lot, that, if Red Bull just stepped in and covered a lot of it, which it's a crazy motorsport, it's what their bread and butter, blah, blah, blah. Why haven't they?
I mean, we've worked with Red Bull since 2008. I don't think that that's out of the question, even though that
But at a mass scale.
What do you mean mass scale?
Like how they're doing with Drift Masters, like they're actually putting in, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of dollars into the sport.
Well, from our side, we could never do a deal like that, because the most important thing for us is being able to utilize our own rights in the way that we want to. So one distinguishing difference is that like you don't necessarily see a lot of coverage coming out of Drift Masters from the athletes themselves on any given weekend. And that's because they own the rights, and that's the model that they fund. I'm not telling you any secrets. This is just what it is. For us, we could never do that, because the model that we've built, absence a rights deal, is one in which we share our rights as an asset with the athletes. So that's why these guys are like the best social media guys in the world. If you told Adam LZ he couldn't come make videos at an event, or RTR, they couldn't come make videos at an event, like it would really have an impact on the way that they put their program together. But we go a step further than that. We basically say, yeah, you can come and film whatever you want at the event, and we're in partnership with you. But we will also give you every bit of content that we produce on the event weekend. So you can have the drone footage if you need it. You can have all of our GoPros. We will send you a folder with every single run that you did during the event weekend after each session of competition. And that's just meant to help make the coverage of Formula D that much broader and bigger, because essentially what you're getting is everybody is working together to expose their experience at the sport, and that effect in terms of creating popularity, in terms of the drivers being known and everybody piggybacking on each other, has got the sport to where it is now. So the alternative to that is, you either sell or you do a rights deal with an entity that closes a lot of that stuff off. If you think about Drive to Survive, for example, with F1, that was the very first time that F1, after Bernie Ecclestone era, kind of opened the doors to what's behind Formula One. And at the very beginning, many of the high-level teams, Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull in a certain sense participated, but I don't think Verstappen was actively involved in it in the first year. And it's only because they understood the value of it, right? Like Red Bull's smart enough to realize like, oh, Netflix is going to do a show about F1. It's going to be produced really well. That's going to give us an edge. We should participate. We should willingly participate. Now there's no team that doesn't want to participate. In fact, teams are trying to lobby for more coverage within Drive to Survive after 6 or so years. That's analogous to the way that a rights situation works, where prior to that, Formula One was the old boys club. You couldn't see behind the closed doors. The new management group, Liberty Media, who came from the TV side, a lot of really good executives, realized that we can't do that. We can't go all the way and say free for everybody, because we have to control what is paying the bills. right? But what we can do is open up certain segments, expose it to an audience with this different than broadcast type coverage. And if it goes well, it could be a viral hit for us. And that's what happened. That's what's happened. And that, I would say that was the impetus for basically changing the face of Formula One to what it is now. From zero to one races in the United States, where the US is like just an afterthought, to now 3 races in the United States, all of them are wall to wall, just out of control.
Yeah. The F1's a different animal. I don't know. I don't even know enough about that world myself to even speak on it. But we can jump off of that. I know I don't have much time from you. So I got to ask one more question. I've heard some rumors of some tracks, just normal season tracks, getting switched out for next year. Is that a thing? Or is that what's going to be happening?
We're going to have, I'll just say our schedule will not be the same as it was this year, and that will probably include some new venues. You know, there's a certain amount of the cat I don't want to get out of the bag. In fact, if you go walk up this road right here, this little walkway, and you look to the left, there's about, I would say it's like 20 feet by 20 feet square with black scrim on it. That is where our Hall of Fame monument that in principle will be here until something happens 50, 60, 70, 100 years down the road. That's where our Hall of Fame monument has been getting built for the last 2 years. It was meant to be finished for this weekend because we were going to do our schedule announcement along with a press event leading into Larry's thing last night. So about a week ago, it's so hard to do stuff of that. I mean, I go down in the area where we are. Kevin, our competition director, who's also kind of like a handyman, everything, was leading that project. And when I say leading, he was literally digging out the dirt from the ground by himself under permit. He pulled 9,000 pounds of dirt out of the ground right here at all hours of the night. I've seen him one time over the past month, which has made this event even harder. And then he laid a 3,000 pound slab of concrete that had to dry before we put on the structure that was going to go there. So the dedication of that was supposed to happen on Thursday. We'll probably end up pushing it to either before SEMA or right after SEMA. And we'll readjust when we do our schedule announcement. But that's just all to say that there's definitely will be some changes next year. Everybody's kind of heard what's going on with New Jersey. It's very, very I wouldn't even say it's up in the air. I think that place is done. Yeah, and we didn't find out about that until it became more serious. So we may have missed our window of doing a last event there. Even if they are operating, we're so far down the road now that if we moved it and canceled the other event that we had or something along those lines, assuming that New Jersey is going to go away, we may not have another venue to go back to because the venue that we're looking at made a lot of sacrifices to get us a date.
It's always hard to see tracks go, especially that one. That's such a fishbowl type track. You're literally on top of the track.
Well, those guys, the Knapp family is one of, I would say, arguably one of the coolest families in drifting that I know. And they are legitimate fans, and they're really nice people, and they're super considerate of series and people that come to their venue. They're the ones that approached us when they were shutting down the drag racing side to say, do you want to partner with us to build our drag racing venue into, essentially a drift auditorium? And it required us to sign a 3-year term. They assigned a designer, which I think Forsberg was the first person to be involved in the design side. It was meant to be using the existing parts of the asphalt there, but then to expand it, but have it be an auditorium type setting or stadium type setting. And the only reason why I think they went through with that was because we were willing to commit to go there for a number of years. We had been having a fine time at Wall Speedway. We were fine there. But, you know, we were also we were out of paddock space. And even though the track was cool and it was a sellout event every single year, there's a real challenge in front of us with New Jersey. Like, that helps us have more scale. We can grow there. There's ample paddock space. They have the road track as well. And they're willing to make what a cool storyline. You know, an ex-NHRA drag race facility is closing down to reopen as a drifting facility. It's pretty dope.
That entire track's going to be going away, essentially?
I mean, I don't
Or just for FD?
No, for everybody. I mean, the main property,
okay.
I mean, this is in the public record. So if you talk to people in New Jersey, they can probably tell you what's been in the newspaper. But the track was going to be eventually sold anyways. When it happens was the question. It's a lot like the Irwindale thing. But, you know, what I can say, because it's been in the public domain, is basically the conditions for which they could sell essentially started after the city had gone through a resolution about the property. Once that begun, then they could start preparing the venue itself, which the most pristine property is the track and the area that we currently occupy. And I don't know if it will go to one buyer or three buyers, because it's a 500-acre, you know, lot. But that according to, you know, Chris, like that's going to go as a prime part of the real estate. So, you know, I get it. Like people have property that is very valuable now in a way that it was different in the 1960s and 70s. You know, the tri-state area has expanded and people are looking for, you know, a lot of storage space, or it's an Amazon, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Has a natural impact on tracks because that's where they were built in the 1960s and 70s.
Do you ever think it'll get to like a point where we're doing this almost every single round? Like if all these major tracks just because they're too hard to keep open, I feel like there's not enough money coming in from racing nowadays.
I think that the independent tracks, so put New Jersey aside, they are a different beast because they have more than just a race track, right? They've got a road course, they have the drag racing track, they have motocross, they have a property that does very, very well for storage. Like, I don't need to tell you their business model, but those guys are fine. The ones that I see that have the biggest problem, and I'm not talking about like California Speedway or anything like that, right? Where they just built this huge, massive facility in an area where there may have been interest 20 years ago, but there wasn't over the past however many years for like a huge race. I'm talking about the independently owned tracks that are only doing racing operations. Those are the ones I think that are at the most risk, because the ownership knows that they're sitting on a valuable asset, and it's how much do I love racing versus how much do I want to use this as a way to protect my family in the future and be able to see some of the value of the ownership of this property. That's different than Road Atlanta, which is owned by NASCAR. It's never going to go away. NASCAR's in the business of doing events, right? That's not one of those. It's not Evergreen Speedway that's owned by the county. The county and the fair and the things that happen on that property are so important to the state. That is most likely never going to go away. So you have to look at those kind of venues where you have these things that are not just a track that's independently operated and owned by somebody that's only doing racing events. With Irwindale, that thing's sustained on non-racing activities. Otherwise, it would have been out of business a long, long time ago. And it's in Southern California, and all of Hollywood uses it. But when you're confronted with that versus I just sell you my property for 30x what I bought it 10 years ago because it's Southern California and right off one of the major freeways, I mean, it's going to be a lot of people that would have a hard time saying no.
I couldn't pass up a few $1 million payday. So
go look in the New Jersey papers and see what they've got it listed for.
I think it'll just make me even more mad. But all right, well, I won't hold you too much longer. I think I've already taken too much of your time. So
That's no problem.
yeah, let me know if we should work out a way to do a full episode again. I know that would probably be nice. Get some more clarification out there. But
Are you still in Tennessee or?
yeah,
Okay.
still same spot.
Cool.
So yeah,
All right.
we'll figure it out. But I personally want to say thank you for, especially for this season, giving me the opportunity to come out, and thanks to Jacob too for letting me.
I'm glad you guys are holding
Yeah.
it down. It's cool. It's cool to have you a part of it. It's really fun to see where the podcast has gone. And one of my favorite things about the community is the fact that like we have one, but you guys are friendly and we want to support you. And Jacob is super supportive of you. It's like, that's just weird in the real world, but it's cool in the FD world.
Yeah. No, it's always unique, especially when people come up. They'll mention it too. They're like, what about the FD podcast? And I'm like, oh, seems fine to me. I don't know. I love Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob's been a massive supporter of yours, like, and he's just got a good head on himself, and I think he just thinking about what's the right way to be acting in the business world or the drifting world as a business person, but also as somebody that's passionate about the sport.
Couldn't be more thankful for both of y'all.
Thanks,
Helped
man.
me a lot. So yeah, I'll let you get back to it, and thanks again, dude.
Got it.
Up to the ceiling. Trust no bitch, can't catch no feelings. I've been taking long flights from the Bay to Ibiza. Hit home runs, I'm a ball like Jeter. I just want 4, then I leave her. I'm a young pop star, call the boy Justin Bieber. Got a little money if you want, I can teach her. Whole life a movie, you can watch it in theater.